All right. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Rebecca Wolkoff, Chief Technology Officer at ChargeNet, about her perception of how technology is revolutionizing the clean energy space and her career journey. Rebecca, welcome, and thank you for taking time to speak to us today. So I'll start by asking you more about yourself. So could you tell us more about yourself and your role and about ChargeNet?
Sure, of course. So I'm going to go backwards. I'll start with ChargeNet. At ChargeNet, we're installing fast electric vehicle chargers at fast food restaurants and pairing those chargers with solar and storage to help offset the high electricity load of the electric vehicle chargers. We want to make it really easy for customers to come and plug their vehicle in and have a meal at the same time. A lot of current chargers are not quite in the right locations that are great for the customer. So it's our goal to kind of merge those two worlds. In terms of my background and how I got involved with ChargeNet, Tosh and I worked together previously. Tosh is the CEO of ChargeNet at Demand Energy, which is and was a wonderful energy storage paired with solar startup out of Spokane, Washington, that was acquired by an LX in 2017. So I met Tosh there and we kept in contact for a couple of years, and I got very excited by this idea, being an EV owner myself and being involved. I was previously involved in the storage space. So I was very, very excited by the opportunity to work at ChargeNet with Tosh, who I'd worked with previously and who was really cool to work with.
Awesome. So you play a role as a Chief Technology Officer here at ChargeNet, and we know that this is a clean energy technology space. So for our readers and listeners, I would love for you to explain what is the differentiation between this energy. Energy is a big space if you think of, right? So what's the differentiation between clean energy, renewable, and sustainable energy? So how do we kind of think differently about these three sectors?
That's a great question. So and this is a personal sort of belief here. So when I think of sustainable, I think of trying to reuse what we have and make sure we're using materials that are often recycled or are recycled, and at the end of their life can go and be either reused or recycled. I would say for ChargeNet, that's not a major, aside from using, recycled materials for our carports, that's not a major thing we're working on. There is an aspect of, I would say, sustainability in the batteries that both ChargeNet and others are providing, and in the car batteries, right? At some point at the end of the life, we're going to have to do something with those batteries. And there's a couple companies out there that are working on that. From a clean and renewable perspective, in my mind, clean and renewable are often used interchangeably. And I would describe, clean and renewable energy as, solar, wind, anything that's not producing fossil fuels and hurting our environment significantly.
That's really awesome to hear. And I think it was a very clear explanation. Thanks for that, Rebecca. Yeah. So the next question I have is clean energy and technology, right? So it seems like a pretty powerful combination of two fields coming together. Are you able to tell us how technology is disrupting the energy industry today? And would love to hear specific examples of how you are leveraging some of the latest tech trends and making a difference to the customer community.
Absolutely. So this is the stuff I love to talk about. So I think we're seeing this really cool thing happening in the energy industry, along with everyone hears about the Internet of Things and connectivity. And I think I'll start maybe a couple decades ago, right, where smart meters were invented and starting being put in place. That allowed more information to be collected and more processes to be automated. I don't know if a lot of people know about like their energy bill, but how it used to work is a meter would sit there and just record how much energy was used. And really it's just like a ticking ticker counting, okay, 40 kilowatt hours of energy, 41 kilowatt hours of energy. It just like keeps on ticking up, and someone would come and drive by it once a month, and that's what you're billed for in your electricity bill. There was no automation. Now there are these smart meters, you know, not only can record energy, they can start to record other different pieces of data and send that data back automatically and in real time in some cases. So every minute, every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes, depends on the utility, depends on the smart meter settings. And they can start to, you know, measure, I would say, like, you know, the reactive and active power and everything, which is fairly different, at least from what the meters used to do. So, okay, now we've got these smart meters and those are being put into place in a lot of different locations. And suddenly you can start to see from a utility perspective, oh, where, you know, where congestion is starting to happen because you're getting this real-time data. The same time, you know, I'm sure everyone has heard about machine learning, but a lot of the different techniques in using data for predictive purposes have advanced a lot, right? And so now with these smart meters, we've got a lot of data being collected. And now the ability using some of these new techniques to try to use that data for predictive purposes. So I think that's probably one of the coolest places in the energy industry, or on the cutting edge right now, is there's a lot of folks, not just ChargeNet, but you know, I think practically everyone with technology in the industry is in some way doing some sort of forecasting with energy data and pairing that with temperature data. And as more things get connected, right, there's even more data out there to use. And what ChargeNet specifically is doing is pairing a point of sale data with the energy data. And that to us, we think will be very powerful. Of course, nobody else has done this, so we don't know yet. And that's sort of the thing when you're looking at these data science fields, right? Sometimes things work out and you are able to use, you know, temperature to predict what the energy electricity load is going to be. And sometimes, you know, you've got a machine that is not correlated at all to temperature. So it might be very case specific. And I think it's really cool to see sort of all of these different data pieces moving together. And that's just touching, I think, on like kind of the data science aspect of it. You know, we've also got electric car technology that has been evolving pretty rapidly, and battery technology that's been evolving rapidly in the past 10 years. And the combination of all of these things happening at once is really what allows ChargeNet to exist in the first place. All these wonderful technologies were not around a decade ago. You couldn't find lithium-ion batteries at a cheap enough price to install them for storage a decade ago. So very cool to see it happening. Very cool, almost in real time, to see the different companies of different what do you call it, like electrical assets evolving. So, you know, there's a company out there called Smart Car that is an API to different cars, right? Like who would think your car needs an API, but that exists now, right? And that can be used to benefit society. So, you know, the same goes with the battery storage, right? Those APIs are evolving, and sometimes you put standards around it. Same with the chargers.
That's very cool and awesome to hear. one question that's on my mind is that with this kind of innovation and disruption in the clean energy space, it could be sometimes really hard to understand the demand of customer and the market. It's not like a regular retail or a software industry where here's what the consumer could like, because this is a very niche market. So how do you evaluate or make an assessment of your buyer needs and prioritize your organization's technology strategy?
Absolutely. So we do a lot of customer interviews, right? So we go, at the beginning of the company here, a couple of us would go out to charging stations, go out to different places, especially where at the moment electric vehicle owners are located, and ask them some questions about what they like, what they don't like, what they want at a charging station. And we found the highest answer for what electric vehicle owners want, or the most people answered, was food and restroom. So we're also, keeping in touch by we're going to be doing user testing. And I think that's something a lot of energy companies or traditional energy companies are not used to, right? This customer interface. And it's really important that we keep very close to the customer and be in tune with the customer's needs. So, having them user test our application and our different sites and evolving quickly as they, as we understand what customers want more is really important to us.
Awesome. And again, this is a new business model, right? I mean, at least with ChargeNet, I've not seen any companies which do what you guys are doing. So it is a cultural shift for a lot of people to rethink how the energy industry is revolutionizing. So what are some of your strategies to drive this cultural shift in the market? It change is hard for sure anywhere, but I'd like to hear your perspective of what is your plan and strategy to kind of drive this cultural shift and make this really successful and reach out to a lot of people?
Absolutely. So right now, we don't think charging is very accessible, and it's particularly not accessible to anyone in a low income area, and that might affect their decision to get an electric car. Electric cars are becoming more affordable. They're not, the most affordable out there at this very moment, but prices drop pretty dramatically every year. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some of those electric cars be very, very affordable soon. And the deterrent in these low income communities is going to be, well, where's the charger, right? If you live in an apartment building, you might not have the ability to charge at home. Like I live in an apartment building and I'm not allowed to charge here. And so a lot of these people, their only choice will be to charge outside their home, and we want to make that super convenient. So our business model revolves around trying to, get more people, not the typical electric vehicle owners today, excited about electric vehicles, and for it to be possible for them to have electric vehicles. We know that once electric vehicles are cheap enough, as long as it's convenient, people will go over to start using them. So that's sort of what we're about.
I love the intent there. Awesome. So what is the future? What do you think in terms of the future disruption? What's coming next in this industry? I know you talked about various aspects of the data, right? So using the data for predictive analytics and insights. So where do you see the future of this industry in the next coming years?
So it's really interesting because a lot of different utilities have made different utility programs and nothing's quite stuck yet, right? There's not a winner of those utility programs that is providing the best benefit to the utility at this time. But I think we'll see trends start to converge. So one that I think is going to be big, and I know Canada, Massachusetts, and New York all have these programs where you're charged for the highest peak of the utility in some way or another. And so if you are producing energy at that time, basically offsetting, your current electricity load at that very high peak time, the utility will give you a monetary benefit because you're helping offset their high peak as well. And what that does is by the utility saying, hey, we're going to charge you for the top, 10 highest utility peaks of this year, it forces the customer then to figure out, okay, how do I figure out what those peaks are? And it takes kind of the analytical resourcing needs off of the utility and more onto the business customer side. So I think we're going to see a lot of I think because that's very, very beneficial to the utility, right? They don't need as many resources to do this analytical piece. I think that's the direction utilities will probably go. And then that will in turn kind of either force businesses to outsource, this sort of, hey, when should I turn off my lights? Or, hey, when should I install a battery to offset that? Or and offset all of that onto other companies that either do that already or have integrated that sort of thing into their business model. So that's like kind of an example, I would say, value stream, the system peak. But I think we're going to see a trend of utilities often offloading the smart piece or whatever requires the data science piece, trying to offload that onto other businesses.
Great. And then I was also curious to understand, how do factors like the pandemic or the geography that the industry is in or the political influence really impact your strategy and customer reach? Do you consider these factors when you start planning things? We'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Absolutely. And I think that was yet another reason ChargeNet was, I thought, an amazing idea. You can do everything from your app. So it's not just for charging your car, it's for ordering food. And having a one kind of stop shop in your app to do that as a customer seems really easy. And that way you never have to set a foot into the store, especially if they'll, bring out your food to you as some fast food chains will. And if we see sort of COVID kind of, if I'm a restaurant, right, the way I evolve is either to have more people drive through or to go the Sonic model, right? And Sonic has stations where you go and you park your car and someone comes out and brings you your food. And I think we'll probably see a little of both, but our model is very, very complementary to the Sonic model, where a car is just parked and someone brings you your food, and no one has to go and interact with a lot of different people. So it's definitely, we think our model is a huge bonus for COVID. And I guess we'll have to see, how openings and everything evolve and see if restaurants want to go that direction.
That's really pretty cool. Awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about you. Looking at your career trajectory, right? You've always been in the convergence of the energy industry with technology, coming from a tech background. I would love to understand what has been your motivation and trigger to really choose this path. So why don't you walk us through like your journey as such? I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. So in 5th grade in Shelley Lewis's class, thank you, Mrs. Lewis, I did a report on global warming, and this like devastated me to learn that global warming and climate change were going to be huge issues. And that 5th grade me decided this is what I want to devote my life to. I want to help solve climate change if I can. And I really liked math and science, and was lucky enough to meet kind of the robotics team in high school. And I think I even went to a couple of the competitions in middle school just because I was excited about what they were doing, and was really into robotics and thought, okay, maybe here's something I'm good at that I really like. Maybe there's a way I can use that to help solve climate change. And I remember I went to the University of Michigan because of the solar car team there. They're consistently, still to this day, always a top team. And I was very, very excited about that team and about a lot of the different programs that Michigan had offered. And that's sort of where my journey into, okay, well, what do I want to do in the alternative energy industry began. And I had thought going into University of Michigan that I would want to do something in the solar industry. And so I chose electrical engineering for that reason. I wasn't super into chemistry, and I wasn't exactly sure what I would be doing with solar, but figured I could be an engineer. And I ended up interning at a company called General Compression that was doing compressed air energy storage. And to me, this was like a whole new, like, oh my gosh, there's energy storage. You could use that to store all the solar and all the wind energy. This is what will make renewables, possible on the grid. And that just kind of blew my mind. And I was so excited about it that I thought I needed a fluids degree as well, because I got the electrical piece, but compressed air, you really need to understand a lot more. So I went to my Stanford for grad school to learn about fluid dynamics. But while I was at Stanford, I took a couple of other energy classes, and I actually interned at Tesla. And both of those things really showed me that the market was not going to favor compressed air energy storage, which I still think is a great idea to this day. But it's much more capitally cost intensive than battery storage. And all the market trends showed that lithium-ion battery prices were dropping. Tesla was starting to mass produce them, or had plans to mass produce them. And so I then started looking up energy storage companies, battery energy storage companies. And there were about 3, I think, at the time. There was STEM in the USA, STEM, which became Engie, Demand Energy, which was bought by an LX, like I said. No, sorry, Green Charge became Engie, STEM is still around, and Demand Energy. So I applied to all 3, but Demand Energy was the only one where my previous boss, Mike Fife, he was talking about optimizing the use of energy storage. And basically, taking in all of these different value streams that I was just talking about, right? Where the utilities all over the place have these different value streams trying to incentivize renewables or renewables plus storage, and they're all a little different. And I thought really cool to help build this software that could take all these different value streams and do what's best energy wise and what's best economically for the customer. Nobody else, at least that I talked to, was talking about that at the time. And so I joined Demand Energy. I think I was the 18th hire there. And we built that software, and it's highly, highly successful. And I eventually, helped kind of productionalize that software into what an LX has today, and led the computational science team in the US before I left for ChargeNet. So I'm really proud of what we accomplished there at an LX, and there's certainly still cool room to grow. And I had, like I said, kept in contact with Tosh, and this was just an opportunity I couldn't turn down. I'd always wanted to do something in the electrical vehicle space. I kind of skipped over the part where I was applying to jobs in the electrical vehicle space because none really existed. I talked to, I'm forgetting his last name. There's a professor at the University of Delaware, William. I should know his name. He ended up actually starting a vehicle to grid company. But at the time he said basically, doing a PhD program would be a way to study vehicle to grid. And I think I talked to Scott Fisher also at NRG, and he also had a very small role at NRG at the time doing vehicle to grid, but no job openings there. So I had looked when I graduated, but there was nothing in the space. And now that the electrical vehicle space had caught up, this just seemed like a perfect way to incorporate my want for electric vehicles and solar and storage. Everything kind of culminated together.
That's really great to hear. And that kind of leads me to the next question that I have. You worked in established enterprises like Tesla and Demand Energy. So ChargeNet is a startup. So what advice would you want to provide our listeners and readers about taking risks in career and just kind of the story of courage that we want to hear from you?
Oh man, I think you have to be ready for it. I did, Demand Energy was also a startup, and Tesla sort of operated like a startup. So I would say I had experience in startup-like environments. General Compression was a startup. I also had worked for Toyota and GM at internships and National Grid. And I knew from those experiences that a startup environment is very cool because you have so much power to contribute to the direction of the company and the success of the company. And I felt at every startup I worked at, even as an intern, that I was contributing highly and really making a difference in the company, which in turn I thought was making a difference in the world. And it's much, much harder to feel that at a big company, right? It's easy to kind of get lost. So I think if you're thinking about it and you're, I don't know, a similar type of person who really likes to see the results, a startup's like a great environment because you learn so much and you get to do a little bit of everything. If you're thinking about making the jump, I would just, make sure you've got your finances in place, that you have a little bit of runway for yourself in case things go south. But as long as you have that runway, go for it. Like the world has so many good ideas that aren't acted upon, and the only way, especially in clean tech, that we're going to get to the level we need to be at what I personally think we need to be at 100% renewable energy. We're not going to get there without a lot of innovation and a lot of people who are courageous enough to start their own company and try something.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was awesome. And this was a fantastic conversation we had with you. Thank you for taking time to share your journey, your experiences and insights. Truly enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks. Thanks so much. It was awesome talking with you too.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.